art music has finally come to Kendall. Experience concert music performance as you've never seen it south of downtown Miami. This is Kendall Sound Art, the free monthly concert series held at West Kendall Regional Library. Visit kendallsoundart.com for more details.
I'd like to say a few words about what I'd like to do today, which is not something I've done before, and it'll be a bit of an experiment. And I'm hoping that you will indulge me and participate. Cellists are not accustomed to playing by themselves. A lot of people who came to hear cello recital, they just assumed they were going to see a piano there because there's ought to be at least a piano with a cello, and I'm just playing all by myself. I won't get into the reasons, but at any rate, what I would like to do, the experimental part, is that I would like for us, throughout the recital, to try and discuss and answer a question which is, of course, impossible to answer, but fun to play with, which is about the meaning of music, if you don't mind. Music is such a strange thing when you think about it. We sit and we listen to sounds, and those sounds move us, and they have meaning. And to me, both those things are extraordinarily strange, because they are, after all, just sounds. And yes, we craft them, we organize them, we structure them, and they come to have meaning. And there are a couple of books that I've been reading recently. One I haven't finished, I'll admit. And one of the books that I did finish is called This Is Your Brain on Music. And I recommend it to everyone. Levitin, I think, is the author. And it's an extraordinary book. It's very readable. And it tries to get at that. Why do we respond to music emotionally? Why even music? So I'll just leave you with a thought for now. One of the theories out there that has to do, I suppose, with evolution and how our brain works and so on, is that perhaps music and our enjoyment of music is accidental. That it's called the cheesecake theory. And the cheesecake theory states that, well, cheesecake is a wonderfully delicious food, and the reason we like this wonderfully delicious food is that we somehow evolved to crave fats, salt, and sugar, because they are kinds of foods that can provide you with a great deal of energy and sustenance very quickly in small amounts. Fat is wonderful. You eat a little bit of fat and you have a ton of calories. But of course, those things were difficult to find. So we've learned to crave them. Now they're incredibly abundant. And when we put these things together, a little salt, a little fat, a little sugar, and we create a cheesecake, it's incredibly delicious. And there may be certain things about the way we evolve, the way we think, and the way we respond to hearing and to sounds in general, I guess I'll stick to sounds for now, that somehow they have meaning, and we've come to enjoy music. So I'd like to try to explore that and perhaps discuss with you what music might mean to you, and try to speculate as to why we enjoy it. I don't think we'll find an answer, but we'll see how it goes. If the discussion gets too boring, I'll stick to playing. But meanwhile, let me start by playing those three ricercati. Gabrielli wrote these a long time ago. I enjoyed playing these pieces because they predate the cello suites that Bach wrote for the cello, which you might have noticed is ominously absent from this program. Okay, yeah, a cello recital now, Bach. Well, there will be some Bach, don't worry. So he was a cellist, and he studied with another wonderful cellist from the time, Franceschini, And of course, being a cellist, they have to dabble on writing music for their own instrument. And hopefully, by the end of the Richard card, we'll discuss a little bit of instrumental music and how it has meaning. So start thinking about all that as I play these three pieces.
cheesecake theory, which I, as a composer, take objection.
Please, thank you. I'm glad.
I really do. Just as the good librarian came in here and called this entertainment, I object to that word. Because I think what we do, what you just did, brought a lot to my life. When Einstein said, society without music is a society without a soul. If we go to Africa and we try to communicate and we have no ears and we can't communicate without music, then we can't communicate because it's a musical language. So what you're doing is much more than entertainment and...
More than cheesecake.
You know, yes, it's a dance. I mean, we all know that that's a dance, but that's beside the point. Right. It enriches our lives.
Well, oh, absolutely. And, you know, the whole point of the book is to go against the cheesecake thing. And in it, he tries to put his finger in the parts of the brain that causes us to understand the music the way we do. And I'll just tell you one thing, maybe once in a while I'll tell you about other things. One of the things that fascinated me is rhythm and beat. Because we often, there's plenty of music that has no beat, but most of the time, if you just play music to someone who's, I don't know, uninitiated, non-musician, someone who just enjoys music, maybe doesn't even listen to classical music, just puts on the radio and plays their favorite top hits, you know, of the times. They listen to the music, and the first thing that tends to happen is that you want to move your body to the beat. You're going to tap your foot, you're going to nod your head. And why do we all respond that way to the music? As a matter of fact, when I taught music appreciation, I would often ask the question in the class, these are high school students, and non-musicians, and I would ask them, you know, tell me your favorite piece of music. And they'll give me the name of the song, and invariably I didn't know the song. And when I asked them what it was that they liked about that piece of music, 99% of the time it had to do with the lyrics. They love that song because it makes them think and remember and feel and this and that and the other. And I couldn't get them to tell me anything at all about the music. As a matter of fact, they tended to call the music whatever it was that wasn't the singing. So there's the song, which is what the singer is singing, and then there's the music, which is everything else that goes with the music, which of course for us musicians makes no sense. Maybe to some of you there's a, well, duh, that's of course that's what it is. But no, that's not what it is. The music is everything. So at any rate, what happens when you take away the words? And it's one thing to think of a Schubert song, or to think of a pop song that will have the instrumentation or the arrangement that will reflect the spirit of the words of the song. But it's another thing completely to take a piece like the one I just played and make it have meaning. How does it tell a story? How does it make us move? Did that piece sound happy? Did it sound sad? Did it communicate something? I hope it did, because I've spent my entire life trying to bring meaning to my art of cello playing. And yet, it's such a cliche, you know? When you ask, well, when you play the cello? Well, I like to express myself. What did I just express now when I play this piece? I couldn't tell you. Was I expressing myself? Yes, I probably was. Was there some deep idea that I wanted to communicate to you because I wanted to understand the world better? No, probably not. Am I simply reproducing a work of art that some person a long time ago wrote and we appreciate it and therefore we want to preserve it and share it with other people? Yes, that's a big part of what I'm doing. But where's the expression? Let me just go into small details about what we do, at least from my perspective as an interpreter. And we might attempt to talk a little bit from the perspective of the composer as well. But, for example, the first Richard card that I played for you, to me is the one that fascinates me the most, because it's so crazy. If you remember, it goes like this. melody. There are these jointed, crazy notes hopping up and down. Yes, please.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, yeah.
I wanted to get in cue for...
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was something that struck me first off. The first piece was, it was making you do some things that were physically demanding, and for something where you're trying to be artistically expressive and sensitive to the music as something that is maybe spiritual or emotional, even more so. You're not just doing physical actions, you have to do them in a way that we might find, for lack of a better term, beautiful in some way. And so
the way I do it,
it's almost like a chef saying, here's the instructions on how you're going to eat this cheesecake.
okay.
You need to lay down on the sofa, and you need to have someone drop things in one bit at a time on a fishing pole without cutting your lip. I don't know.
Yeah, you wanted to say something?
Actually, you were saying where's the melody, and there's really at least two melodies, right? It's separated by registers.
Right.
And they're actually very simple melodies. It's the complexity of the relationships between them and the colors that come out from the combination of notes that give it, I don't know, some sense of profundity.
All right. Well, that's great. Yeah, well, because when you do something. Oh, sorry. We have an implied melody, and then the bass line. And of course, if I had two instruments, we might have had one instrument play one part, the other instrument play the other part. Or here's a cellist, and he's determined to write a piece for just the cello alone, and he's missing all that depth of harmony, so he finds a solution. What's one of the solutions that he found? Yeah.
I'm going to back out of what you're talking about, what you were talking about before.
Okay.
And that's beat.
Uh-huh.
Ever listen to sound underwater, you realize it carries tremendous distance. So if our brain wasn't actually eliminating the sound of our heartbeat, that's all we would hear all day long. But nevertheless, behind that subconsciously, we feel that heartbeat. And everything we do is tied to beat. Now as we get older, you notice that time seems to go faster. And time seems to go faster because our timing is relative to our life experience. A 6-year-old, one day seems quite long. To a 60-year-old, one day is very short. So the time seems to fly.
Right.
Everything we do is tied to beat and time, even when it's subconscious.
Oh, yeah, and as a matter of fact, if I go back just to expand on that a little bit, obviously, our body depends on so many rhythms. You mentioned the heartbeat. There's the breathing. There's the sleep and waking cycle. And there's so many things that are dependent on rhythm. And one of the things that Levitin discovered in studying the brain and trying to find where the rhythm is that perhaps the oldest part of our brain, the amygdala, is also responsible for coordinating movement. And it's also where we detect the beat in music. And which might explain why we have the desire to move our bodies when we feel that rhythm, which I think is just fascinating. And so it's very, how do we say, it's very deep. It goes very far and it's very guttural. That visceral, that's the word I'm looking for. The response that we usually have to rhythm, because the brain then recognizes, that's rhythm. That's what we do all day long in this body to keep this thing going. It's like clockwork. So let me just take this piece a little bit more and talk about what it is that we also do as performers when we're dealing with rhythm and manipulating time. Because if I were to simply read these notes or put them into a computer, it might sound something like this.
not interested.
Right. So anyway, so we have the option and the possibility of manipulating time, which is perhaps one of the fascinating things about music, because you will warp time for the duration of the piece of music. And we will respond differently. You know, there's no way of knowing. It's very much like abstract art. If you read some Kandinsky and the way he describes his departure from formal painting, it's just like music. It's extraordinary. But there are different approaches of honoring, perhaps, or arranging pieces from the past. And there's an example in the next piece by John Corigliano, who's a contemporary composer, American composer. You may know him. He's most famous, perhaps, for his Red Violin soundtrack. If you've seen the movie The Red Violin, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you must go and see it. It's a spectacular film with great music. Actually won an Oscar. And I remember when he got the Oscar for music, I was so excited. My goodness, here is a hardcore, heavy-duty, classical, living composer being recognized by popular media, if you like. So it was very exciting. This piece is called Fancy on a Bach Air. And the Bach air in question is the air from the Goldberg Variations. And he takes a completely different approach in writing this piece for the cello. So he's not at all trying to write the air from the Goldberg Variations on the cello like Casado did with the Handel Variations. And so if you're not familiar with the Bach, if you don't mind, I'm just going to play the melody from the Goldberg, and then I'll just launch right into Corigliano. You'll know when it's Bach and when it's not Bach. So forgive me, keyboardists. and singing all the way through with a few moments of where he lets go of that relentless rhythm of just one note after the other. I mean, the beginning, to me, I can easily imagine, perhaps, I'm only guessing, because that's the other thing we try to do. Of course, he's alive, I could just give him a call, but that wouldn't be as interesting as it is when I'm trying to second-guess Beethoven or Schubert. But, I can easily imagine, here's the beginning of the song, and he loves it. And he goes off. And he goes off for a long time, expanding on just that one idea. The opening 3 notes of the melody. And that entire line goes on for quite a while, until you get to which is the second measure, which comes about a minute later. And then again he expands on that measure forever with this long melisma, I guess you could call it. You could call all sorts of things. And so for the longest time, each measure of the Bach becomes expanded beyond recognition. And there are only a few snippets here and there. For those of you who know the melody, which of course he transforms, is much slower, and he reharmonizes. And then, of course, we have the long-forgotten son of Bach, Pidicue Bach. Those of you who are not familiar with Pidicue, he was discovered by a great professor in, I think, northern South Dakota University or southern North Dakota University. I can't remember exactly which university he's from. We believe this was the son of Bach, and he left us all these different works. So this is another composer who's inspired by Bach, and he makes fun of cellists a little bit. You're going to hear some noises that those of you who are familiar with cellists, you become accustomed to hearing them. So don't take this too seriously. I was going to play just the preludiable, but if you don't mind, I'm going to play the whole suite. It's called the Suite Number 1 for cello all by its lonesome. And it was edited by Peter Schickele with the loneliness known only to those of integrity, as it says here. There's all kinds of very deep and profound stuff that comes out from this renowned professor. And if you're not familiar with PDQ, welcome. So here is the Suite Number 1. I'm going to play the 3 movements. The first is Preludiable. The second is Sarabanda, Carmen Miranda. And the third movement is the Gigolo.
Teaches it.
approaches and the things they will do to them. Yeah, one of the, sorry to get back to Peter Schickler jokes, you may be tired of hearing them, but Peter Bach, probably his most famous work is the Unbegun Symphony, which of course he was born too late to begin. So. Okay, so the next piece, going to something completely different. Of course, you know, that again, that's the funny thing about music. I'm sorry, now I'm digressing to my discussion just for a minute. I noticed there were people laughing, you know, and I was playing notes, very much like I was playing the other notes, where there were people perhaps dreaming or getting bored, and all of a sudden they're laughing, and all I'm doing is playing notes, and the way I play them, and the way the notes were combined, and the expectations that you have of what it is that you're supposed to be hearing next, causes you to laugh, which is another bizarre reaction that we have. Why do we laugh? What is it that is funny? And why are we interested in that? If I get to it, eventually I'll get into my other book, which is called The Singing Neanderthals, in which it's a much thicker, much denser book, but fascinating read, where this scientist, I forget his name, sorry, it's The Singing Neanderthals, easy to remember. He claims that through his studies, he believes that music perhaps may have been the first form of language before words were created. And he shows a lot of evidence for that through the study of the way other primates communicate, and the vocalizations that they do, and the possibility that perhaps in the beginning, humans, as they started gathering in small communities, that they at first expressed their emotions primarily through music or through musical utterances. And then later on, the words came in. Because sometimes people describe the emergence of music the other way around. The music as a sort of poetic expansion of language. But this scientist argues the other way around, that specificity of language came as later, that there was communication through musical utterances that express emotions primarily. Discontent, desire, who knows what emotions you can express with grunts and calls and other vocalizations that eventually may have needed more specificity, and then words begin to emerge and so on. So they're fascinating book. And but here I'm able to make you laugh just by playing notes with my cello. It's crazy, right? All right, on to something much more recent. I met a cellist in Brazil at a festival, and he played this piece as an encore, and I just loved it. And I'm warning, it's the first time I'm going to play it, so I don't know what's going to happen. But and I asked him if he had the music, and he says, no, there's no music. And eventually he did come up with sort of a manuscript, so we've been working on trying to publish it. And as I started trying to publish, I began learning the piece, and hopefully I'll be able to play it for you. And I started researching the composer. He just said it was a friend of his. I looked up his name, and it turns out that he has this nickname. What is it? What's the nickname? I forget already. Captain Dirk. Yeah, Captain Dirk. And he, I guess he specializes in this kind of cello playing that you would see in bars and so on. You might have seen it on YouTube, where they use electronics and they will record a bass line, and they'll loop it and start playing back, and they'll play another line, and they'll loop it again, and they'll build the music that way on the spot as they improvise. But this piece is through composed, so it's for real. It's a Passacaglia, so it's again a shout out to the old days, but in a more modern way. techniques, calls it a Passacaglia. If you're keeping track, you can hear the lines, bass lines going up and down, and beautiful little piece, not so easy, but we're here for it. All right, so to finish, I have another piece, this time by a Brazilian composer. I play something from Brazil. I'm from Brazil originally. And this is a section from a cello concerto that Villa-Lobos, probably the best known of the Brazilian composers, Villa-Lobos wrote in the 1950s for a cellist, Brazilian cellist called Aldo Parizo. Aldo Parizo is the cello professor at Yale University. He's been the cello professor at Yale University for the past 56 years, if you can imagine that. He's currently 93 years old. I was just with him a couple of months ago. He's perfectly fine, teaching full-time. Walks every day, does a little bit of physical therapy, but other than that, he's just fine, which is remarkable. But anyway, in the 1950s, he was working with Heitor Villa-Lobos, and interestingly enough, Andrés Segovia as well. He was writing the cello concerto, the second cello concerto, at the same time that he was writing the guitar concerto. Now, Villa-Lobos played guitar, and Villa-Lobos also played the cello, and he also played the piano, and he also played the flute, but at any rate, that's a whole another story. So, Parizo tells the story of how, as he was writing the concerto, Villa-Lobos would pick up the cello, which was a Stradivarius, and he would sit and he'd play, what do you think? He'd play it like that, and then Parizo would take the cello and say, no, that's ridiculous, you should do it like this, and then they would have arguments, and they would have agreements, and this concerto emerged. Very colorful piece. This, he wrote, one of the movements is a cadenza. So the cadenza is when the orchestra doesn't play. So since, if you want, you can imagine an orchestra here behind you. They're just quietly sitting, holding their instruments and listening to the song.
Very expensively.
Yes, exactly. That's right. They're not playing it over. And the only hint as to what might have inspired Villa-Lobos in this cadenza, where he also explores different techniques you can hear, is that supposedly he was trying to imitate the sounds that one might hear in the jungle. And when I play this for kids, invariably they hear birds and elephants and all sorts of interesting things. So here's the cadenza from Concerto Number 2, Heitor Villa-Lobos. meaning of music. And he had this whole discussion about what different composers say they can or cannot do with music and whether it means anything or it doesn't mean anything. The one example he brought up is a very famous example by Richard Strauss, who composed a great deal of tone poems in which he would tell stories, who famously claimed that he can write a spoon with music if he wants to. So it's a very famous quote. But then he went on to tell a story about galactic battles and ships in space and almost a Star Wars story. And he played one of Strauss's stone poems, and it fit the story perfectly. And even though that was not the story that Strauss was trying to tell. And one of the points that he was trying to make is that when you're dealing with instrumental music, it doesn't mean anything. First of all, it's about the notes. It's not about anything else. Was that piece about a jumble? I don't know. I put that suggestion out there, so chances are you heard a jumble. And I didn't make that up. That's really what Villalobos say. So who knows what he meant to do. But meanwhile, we can't just stop there, because it really does mean a lot. It means everything to me. I've made my entire life revolves around making music, understanding music, explaining music, expressing music. We are, in some ways, as interpreters, we are somewhere between, keepers of history, as we perpetuate and bring to life great masterpieces of the past, and we try to promote works like the one I just played, which isn't published yet, by new composers who create new music. So I hope that this has meant something to you. I hope I didn't bore you to tears with all my talking. Comments about the music I played or anything I said?